do your job, like the Bill Belichick, do your job, show up to your job. And I think the sale is part of it, but the execution. So to Andrew's point, going to the field, understanding what's going on, and to Matthew's point, if there's a problem, have a solution. So I think it's, the full cycle, not just the sale, but the execution and getting everything finished. Everything that you said you were going to deliver, make sure you deliver it.
Put that coffee down.
Creators are leaders. Be careful what kind of leaders you're producing here.
Helen, we're both in sales. Let me tell you why I suck as a salesman.
They realized that to be in power, you didn't need guns or money or even numbers. You just needed the will to do what the other guy wouldn't.
I'm not leaving. The show goes on.
Well, hello there, friends. Welcome back to the Construction Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Bradley Hartmann. Now, whenever we do training, whether that is with commercial construction companies or residential builders, or it is with students in the university setting, or it's with sales professionals in our construction industry, we always want to make sure it's fun and engaging and different, a lot of energy. But the other thing we want to really do is put people in as close to a position as what they will do when they apply these on the job. And obviously, role playing is one way you can do that. The other way is you can make the investment and leverage relationships and friendship to bring the people on the other side of that equation into the training itself. And this is what we did at a recent training when we brought in actual builders, be that from production home building or custom home building or multifamily or light commercial. And we brought them into our training to share their experiences and engage with our attendees who are learning how to deliver more value in the construction industry. So what you'll hear in this episode is a panel discussion amongst a very esteemed lineup of construction all-stars as they were part of our training. And we just did a panel discussion, kind of a live Q&A on the spot when we were together in Fort Worth, Texas. So these construction leaders work in different segments of the industry. So on the production home building side, we had Mr. Matthew Schmidt. He's a strategic sourcing director at PulteGroup. We also had Mr. Andrew Cooper. He's the director of community planning at Toll Brothers. On the custom building side, we had Mr. Adam Lingenfelter of Lingenfelter Homes in North Texas. We also had Mr. Brent Hull. Brent is a custom builder. He's a historic preservationist. He builds the 100-year window, which you should absolutely check out. And Brent has posted a ton of really valuable content on the Build Show Network with Matt Reisinger. We also had Mr. Bobby Krueger, who runs the Krueger Group in Cleveland, as well as Maverick Development in Chicago. And he is involved with multifamily construction, commercial construction, and development work. And we also had Mr. Dave Reichert. Dave represented the LBM, lumber building material side. He is the owner of Davis-Hawn Lumber on the south side of Dallas. He also owns two different companies that do architectural millwork, one named ACM and another named Lynn Floyd. So this was our lineup. What you're about to hear is these gentlemen very generously and thoughtfully sharing their experiences, insights, and advice to help other people in the industry deliver value. I hope that we can do a little bit of that during this episode for you and your team. As always, thank you for listening. So to get us started, I do think I want to start with Brent. I do want to ask you a question. You said during lunch, you said there were two situations where somebody suggested something that you would actually buy. You have a need, you would be curious, there was a next step. Would you mind briefly give an overview of what those were?
So generally, what I was saying is that most of the products that lumber yards have, we're not interested in 80% of them because they're built for production builders and we don't do that. One of the guys has suggested thermal wood, thermally modified siding, which is basically wood that's been heated up, bakes all the sugars out of it, and Akoya and Kiboni would be examples of that. But siding, wood siding that is thermally treated and is something we would buy, and it's something we are seriously looking at. And so that was one. And the other one was the stone guy, where he was saying he had, not only supply, but also masons and craftsmen that were actually making the material. So those are, two kind of things. We tend to be more craft oriented. So to find people who are, supplying and making is a value for us.
So I know some of the tables, we don't need to go into details, said Brent's meeting was rough. There wasn't there. We got bounced around and we got shot out. There was nothing there. These are at least two examples that people dug around. We found an area of interest that would have led to or could lead to in real life a real next step, correct? Right? Dave, maybe dovetail a little bit. You were kind of talking to your group about making sure that you have a plan, you are prepared, but at the same time, reading and reacting to what is happening. If you see someone come in and they're sitting there and straight face, elbows on the table, looking like, let's get going, you start coming in and be like, hey, what do you think of the Cowboys? Dak Prescott, what's your recommendation on reading the room and being able to adjust to the tempo and the pace that matches who you're talking to?
Yeah, I think respecting the person's time is a huge thing. So yeah, if you know that they're harried, it may be, hey, let's do this another time. Or, I think the most valuable thing we have as salespeople is our time. And so if you can get to a no pretty fast, there's great value in that too. Saying, hey, this is not a fit. Thank you so much for your time. Well, let's move on. There's great value instead of lingering, thinking, maybe something's here. So, that we had that a little bit in our group as far as saying, okay, there may not be a direct fit. In fact, one of the groups from Superior said, yeah, we probably wouldn't have even scheduled a meeting with you. It's like, that's okay, but the research, having a plan is key, but then being able to pivot and use wisdom in how you do it. Be ready to think on your feet. I mean, you stress that a lot, Bradley.
Yeah. Cooper, what was your kind of number one takeaway? There should be, obviously you had 3 meetings. You did a debrief with all of them, working at Toll Brothers, overseeing you have your hand in one way or another, pretty much all the work that's going to be done building-wise in Michigan. Is there a high-level overview of either something that, hey, not to do, or something that a group or two did that you would always recommend they do if someone's going to ask for your time, whether it's 5 minutes or it's a half an hour?
Yeah, so we talked about this a little bit with our groups. I got a couple thoughts on it. One, somebody asked me, if I schedule 15 minutes with you, do I have to stick to 15 minutes? My answer to that is yes, you do. If you know you need more, schedule more. Come prepared and know how much time it's going to take you to kind of establish the relationship and then pitch the product you're pitching or figure out, what we're there to do. Come prepared. Know that. If it's 15 minutes, it's 15 minutes. If it's an hour, but schedule that. I talked a little bit about make a relationship, make a connection. This is a small industry. I don't care if you're from Anchorage like Darren or if you're from New York City. It's a small industry. You know somebody who knows somebody who knows me. Figure that out and make that personal connection, and it's going to make it a lot easier to get in the door and establish that relationship. Whatever market you're in, whoever you're trying to get in the door with, you know somebody who knows that person, or at least you should, because it is a small industry. So try to make it personal, make a personal connection. All of a sudden, it's so much more meaningful. If somebody walks through my door to sell me something and they say, you used to work with Bradley Hartmann, right? Yeah, I did. How do you know him? And all of a sudden, the conversation just goes so much smoother. Figure that connection out and make it. It goes a long way. And then deliver some value, right? Most of the 3 meetings I had, I felt like I was being interviewed. I was being asked a ton of questions, just peppered with questions. Questions are good, but they need to drive to a point, right? It's not an interview. So get to the point of what value you can provide to whoever you're in front of and get there sooner than later.
That's great. Matthew, you had kind of a similar comment that questions were good. There was a lot of heads down and you were trying to give some verbal and nonverbal communication that maybe we should go a different direction for both of us. Anything to add on that Andrew didn't cover?
Yeah, I think it's just being able to read the room and read, hey, if this isn't working or, if I'm throwing out clues on, hey, here's my last problem, you can help me solve it, is something that it just got, in our groups, kind of got overlooked on a lot of things, and we were really going after our script. Our head was down. We were reading the piece of paper, and I'm trying to do one of these of like, hey, look at me here. I mean, I'm not interested. But then you can get yourself some of them that were maybe more nervous than others. They actually, their relationship side or their openness and willingness to throw out things was just came through, and you could say, hey, I'd like to do work with them. They really got it, even though that they didn't have all the right answers. So,
Adam, you have a unique perspective, having been on this side, being a salesperson in this industry, being a sales leader in this industry, being a market leader, and then jumping to the other side for what, 8 years now? 8+ years, right? Being a custom home builder. I'm sure there's 100 different things that catch your attention here. What would you say kind of comes to mind that maybe you've already spoken to, could reinforce to the groups that you met with, that would be beneficial for the entire room to listen to?
Yeah, something that we say now and something that I said when I was in sales leadership at Pro Building Builders First Source and at Oso Lumber before that, really that it's not about you, right? So it's not about us, it's about the customer. And I think that if you have that mentality all the time, that it's, not about yourself, you're going to be a lot more successful. I think already a couple of guys have said something similar, but when you care enough about that person to understand what their needs and wants and desires are, what their pain points are, if you go to their job sites and you talk to other subs that work on the job sites, you talk to the project managers, you spend time truly understanding that person, they're going to know that when you meet with them the first time. I think it's critical. If you go into that meeting not knowing a ton about that person, you're not going to be successful. I mean, sometimes, but for the most part, you're not going to be successful. You have to have that, and they have to know that you care. There's always going to be objections, and you got to figure out something that gets them excited enough to want to talk more, right? So you got to think about what's this person's pain point, and sometimes you may not be able to solve that pain point. I've had situations where when I was in sales, lumber sales, right, met with people and I couldn't provide a solution. Like their problem, I gave an example in one of the meetings, but I had a HVAC contractor with one of my builders that was doing a really bad job. They had all sorts of issues with them, and the builder was complaining about it in front of me. Man, this is frustrating. But I had been networking. I spent a lot of time when I'm on job sites talking to everybody. I knew all the plumbers. I knew all the HVAC guys. I knew electrical. So I had like 4 or 5 in my phone that I was able to give him those contacts. And he started using them right away, and they loved them, right? One of the guys, they started using them right away. So that really strengthened my relationship with that customer. I even had a situation where I wasn't selling the guy, and I was able to network with somebody else, get him that business, and then I ended up getting in the door because they were so happy with the person that I had provided. So as long as you remember it's not about yourself, right, and it's about them, you're going to be able to come up with some creative solutions, which is really important.
Yep.
Can I just piggyback on that real quick? In my groups, I also stressed, you got to look at it from like the long game, right? So you may be trying to sell something and trying to earn it today, but look at the big picture. Think about, all right, maybe I can't provide value. Maybe we're not going to work. But if we can make a connection, we can think about the next project and the next opportunity. Just as Adam said, it's not about you. It's thinking through that big picture, long-term relationship. I think there's a lot of value in that. And you can come back and you'll have an opportunity down the road.
Yeah, and obviously, part of what we do, it's science. There are things that you can do better, predictably, methodically, to be better at what you do. Part of this is just kind of being human. If you go in and say, all right, if nothing else, how can I be helpful? How can I be useful? And yes, we shouldn't have a meeting. I heard, Matthew, you closed one meeting where you said, wait a minute, what are you trying to sell me? So we want to make it clear, as salespeople, we are selling something. If you don't know what that is, go back to square one, visit that, right? But if you start off by just trying to, what's going on in your world and how might I be able to help whether or not that drives commissions for me, that's going to make you more likable. And then you can go someplace else. All right. Who's got a question from the audience? We can ask any member of our panel right now. Who's got a burning question you want to ask? It does not have to be the person that you met with. Aaron?
I had a question. It's not specific to sales, but I just wanted to take the opportunity. My background is a lot more in the flooring industry, ceramic tile industry, and sitting on a couple of boards. And the conversation has always been about the way that vinyl has came and just really put a hurting on ceramic tile, luxury vinyl, whatever you want to call it. And I'm just wondering, especially for the spec home builders, is the push for greener lifestyle and, energy savings and all that sort of stuff, is that going to help bring ceramic back, being that vinyl is a plastic that's not going to biodegrade? Or is the cost savings of labor such that it's sailed and that market has just kind of changed? Or is there a possibility of ceramic kind of getting back into that spec home, or is it like over?
I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that.
Yeah, you're not qualified. Yeah, I don't know that any of us are qualified to answer that. I'll take a stab at it.
Can we start with luxury vinyl, please?
Yeah.
No, just go. Carry on.
Luxury vinyl has been very well received by consumers. It's efficient to install. I don't see it going away. I don't see ceramic tile going away entirely either, right? I've yet to see somebody put luxury vinyl plank as a backsplash or as a shower wall, as an example. So find your niche. No pun intended, but I've never seen a shower niche built out of luxury vinyl plank either. I think luxury vinyl plank is a flooring product for production builders. That's all I can speak for. That's my experience, is here to stay. But I do think ceramic tile has its place and will always have its place as well. You want to take a stab at it?
Yeah, I definitely echo Andrew, his view on it, and it's the customers aren't asking for it. I mean, they're seeing what it is, the ceramic being cold to the feet, and then you're talking about heated floors, things like that. And as a production builder, less steps, less headaches, get in and get out on it is probably where we're moving towards. But bathrooms, showers, big walk-in showers are the thing right now, and that's our niche for the ceramic tile. Yeah, you go down to the Floridas and the Sun Belt areas, that's what a lot of that's what you see there too. So I don't think it would go away in those areas, but my area up north, we've pretty much taken ceramic tile, unfortunately, out of almost all of our offerings except for bathrooms.
Maybe I'll tee up. We can get ready. If anyone else has a question, kind of raise your hand. We'll get over to you. Dave, I want to tee you up real quick, and then we'll go to Good Love. You are the first human ever to come to this event as a participant and then be asked to return to this day. I've been trying to sell Bobby to pay for him to be here for a while. So far, doesn't go that way. What was the biggest thing that stood out to you? Because you are often a buyer, you are also a seller, that stood out to you being on the other side of this exact event?
We didn't used to have those cool flags, guiding everybody around. So I think that's a real
question.
Real improvement there. It's fun. I think what I remember about the event as a participant, one, being a little bit terrified, having a camera in my face and having to do the elevator pitch. But
still do that.
Yeah, being uncomfortable is really a skill that Bradley has mastered, of making us a little bit uncomfortable in a good sort of way. It's in a caring way, right? It's stretching us and challenging us. So it is fun to see in our great industry, and I do think our industry is fantastic. There is such incredible relationships that can be built, incredible friendships, as y'all have said on the panel. Everybody knows somebody. Lean into that. Enjoy it. Life is short, so make the most out of those friendships and those relationships, and that automatically kind of exudes from you. If you care about people, if you care about what you're doing, if you're passionate, which this is an industry that's fun to get passionate about. So I see that on both sides of it. I'm not sure if I answered your question there, but.
That's good. Good luck. You got a microphone?
Yes, I do. All right, so my question, just a little context, come from Mississippi, It's a little bit smaller market than some of the other guys around here, but it's growing with industry, and I know there are going to be national builders coming into the area around Tuscaloosa, Oxford, maybe in the South Haven, Memphis area. The temptation for people like me is to think 84's got it knocked out, BFS has got it knocked out, whatever the top of mind supplier, because they're a national supplier for this. What is something I can tell my salesmen when they're approaching, superintendents or project managers for national builders that puts us in the spotlight? We know our strengths. We're flexible. We can make decisions in the field. We're part of the third largest commodity buying group in the U.S. They're, little buzzwords, things we can say. We have the capability to do that, but because we currently only supply materials for, 200 homes a year total, you may be building 200 homes in 1 year. How does that conversation, how could you see that conversation going from one of my salesmen to where we win a portion of your business or, just some part of that, making that conversation a positive impact for my company?
Adam, why don't you maybe tee that up first of just maybe put on your sales leadership hat and then maybe kind of come to you guys here?
I mean, it's a really good question. I think that every market is going to be a little bit different. There are relationships. Each builder is a little bit different as well. There's some builders that will allow their superintendents to buy from different places. There's some that, no, this is who we're using. We've got rebates, we've got national programs, whatever, and you're not going to get very far with them in those particular cases because it's usually decided by somebody not in the area you're trying to sell anyway. So those are the ones that are hard, but the ones that are more local, and again, it's being out on the job site and finding that out, talking to the project manager or superintendent on site and saying, that you're interested in getting in with them and trying to learn about their business and having those conversations to see how that typically works. That's good. I think it's better if you get in there with framers that you're already working with that really like you. And now it's a warm meeting with that company. And again, it ends up being less of you having to sell and more about that framer selling you to whomever. You're not going to always get in there though. I mean, that is a challenge. When I was selling, was in a smaller market, and my first company, Osel Lumber, was a smaller company, and there was the Pro Builds and the Lumbermans and all those companies around us that were pretty big. And there were some opportunities I never had a chance to. I could never get in there no matter what I did. But we sold a few production builders, and sometimes we'd sell them on odd things. I'd sell them just siding. I'd find that's the one thing that they'll let me sell them, and that's how I got my foot in the door. And eventually it worked into having a plat, and then all of a sudden multiple plats, and then we ended up really getting that business. So also don't be afraid to start small.
Yeah, I think that's the key is start small. Don't think that you're going to go in there and capture everything, the whole entire framing package, everything. Is what's the niche and what is that builder looking for? The strengths of the bigger pro dealers, their weaknesses and where you could find your little area in. It might be exterior doors. And it might be your spot and you crush it, and the next thing you know, you just start building upon that. So is builders start going into other markets. We're doing the same thing of trying to scrape up what's the trade base look like? Who's the local framers, the local electricians and things. If you can be that resource, it just gets your foot in the door pretty quickly. So I'd say that there's definitely opportunity out there, but there is also, you're going up against some that have national relationships. So it's out there.
I got a personal question, then we'll go back to the audience. Brent, as people approach you and you got your Passion for Craft podcast that everybody should listen to, you got the Build Show, you're putting out a lot of content. How do you approach it when you have salespeople approach you also as a fan, as a way to kind of lean in when you got, 100 plus podcast episodes? Someone here has listened to every one of them. When they get in there, they might want to use that as a lead in. I'm sure there's some variability to your mood on any specific day. Be that as it may, how might you instruct folks? Because a lot of different companies are doing a lot more successfully leveraging social media.
I don't know. Good question.
All right, next question.
I would say that just make sure it's fine to BS and be friendly and have that as an end, but make sure that the product you're bringing to me has value, right? Make me look better is what I told my group. What product can you bring to my table so that I look smarter? I'm more resourceful, holding on to that high-end world that we're in, but make me look better. And then we can talk all you want about Romeo and Churchill and everything else.
So we started this off yesterday, right? What I shared with them, I wrote in my book that I believe is true, is that we all want, personally and professionally, I want to work with experts who have ideas and insights, who can help me make, find, and save money and make me look smart. You just validated
100%.
the last part of that. But you guys disagree with any of that, right? So I think a lot of you guys, if you've listened to Brent, I think Brent knows his stuff. You're like, this guy's really smart. I think Brent would also say, there's a whole world of stuff that I don't know, that if you can help me kind of, segment in there and feel confident in there, I will absolutely want to spend more time with you and have a relationship. Question? Let's go back here with Zach, then we'll come here, and then we'll get you back. DJ Hype Train.
All right, so I actually have two questions. The first is a very serious question that Bradley actually wanted me to ask, which is, who does Bradley like the most out of all of you? And the second, less serious question is, what do you guys see as some of the big changes coming in to like the building industry market, maybe not next year, but maybe like a couple years down the road? Or it's like, what's something that's going on now that you might see kind of getting phased out?
Bobby, trends, innovations?
I'm definitely Brad's favorite. So we'll
Do you think Dave is the only one who's ever paid me for work? I would say Dave.
Dave, yeah, that's fair. I met Dave last night. He's lovely. So
He's the best.
Yeah, absolutely. From a trend standpoint, one of the things that I constantly think about is artificial intelligence as it relates to our industry data. So in our little breakout groups, we were talking about from estimating, a lot of what we do today on the construction side, if we're building a multifamily or commercial, everything's done on the computer. So RFIs, submittals, all the coordination. So I think, it's here, and I think it continues to evolve. And I think it also gives you a better product in the field that allows you to build a little bit more efficiently, a little bit more effectively, kind of trim the fat, if you will. So, I think a lot of where we're going continues to be data. There's a building we're building in Chicago right now. It's 21 stories, 248 units. It was all built on an Excel spreadsheet. And what I mean by that, we try to figure out the most efficient way to build it. So the floor plate is 12,000 square feet. We were consulting with the concrete supplier in Chicago, and they said, if you do a 12,000 square foot floor plate, we can do a pour every 3 days, right? So a lot of the analytics went into what we were actually building. So, in my space, in the multifamily, when we're trying to get the most net rentable, when we're trying to be very effective and efficient in terms of what we build, what we can rent, a lot of it is data driven. But that data, you still have to go to the market. You still got to go to the subs and understand, hey, this is what we're thinking. Does this make sense? So that's my perspective.
Anyone else up here? Kind of trends, things you guys are seeing that's coming down the pike?
Data for sure. He said data. Any way you guys can use data to support your customers will be beneficial, but make it relevant data. The other thing I'd say is indoor-outdoor spaces, connecting indoors to outdoors, has been very popular in the South. It's working its way north. So I'm in Michigan, far north. Figuring out how to do that energy efficiently in northern climates. It's done widely, I think, throughout, from Southern California to Florida. As it works its way north, there's innovation that can happen there to make it more energy efficient, climate friendly, and incorporating that indoor and outdoor space, I think, is something that will only grow in the future.
Dave, anything on the dealer side specifically?
I'm thinking about our space. We're in the high-end custom, and so, it used to be one guy in a truck, and he'd do, 3 or 4 projects at a time. And so we're seeing a lot more sophistication coming in on the custom side. We're having to deal with a lot more software issues, a lot more buying teams, pre-construction, a lot more emphasis on estimating. So it's challenging us, kind of changing the way we sell. It used to be a lot simpler as far as just one relationship. Now we've got go deeper into an organization. So we're still learning on that, but that's a change I'm seeing.
Sundell, you're up.
Okay, so switch gears and tell me on the custom home side, trend-wise, what is one of the worst trends that you just cannot get rid of that homeowners keep coming back and forth? You know, you got your 90s oak cabinets, COVID gray, everything's gray. What's one of the worst things that people bring to you that you're just like, I cannot build this into your house?
Yeah, I would say I think Joanna Gaines started a lot of trends that that won't go away. And so we've got 2 full-time interior designers on our staff, and I get feedback from them. We do, weekly meetings at a minimum and talk about a lot of that kind of stuff. And they're getting that a lot. They're getting, we want the modern farmhouse look. We want that board and batten siding. We're wanting, these certain colors, and everything is very much, most customers are coming in with the exact same requests. And then our people have to give them some other ideas and kind of work through that. So I would say that in particular, that look is something that we've already seen kind of disappear. It's really not as much of a trend, but there's still a lot of people that are focused on it. This is my first house, and I remember seeing that show 5 years ago, and I loved that look, and they're still trying to do that. You talk to my design team, and they're like, no, stay away from it.
Brent, you cannot bring up the CNC machine. We know how you feel about that.
Well, I mean, we were talking about kind of innovations and the things that are changing in the industry as well. I think, design is lost, okay? I think that I had an architect tell me one time, he was a commercial architect, but he said, we're losing our place in building. And I was like, why is that? And he said, well, part of it is BIM technology. He goes, we used to be the ones that coordinated all the HVAC and the plumbing and electrical. Now the builder does that. Now these plans get dropped in and we're kind of left out on the side. If you look at what architecture schools, I mean, how long do we have on this to answer this question?
We got 3 more days. Go on.
If you listen to my podcast, you know this is a pet peeve for me. But, you talk about things that are bad, and I think most of it is driven by bad design. Manufacturers end up driving design trends through Pinterest and through other things that there is no cohesive design ideal. Think about this, the last architectural style in America that's recognizable is the ranch style, okay? What style is the 80s McMansion besides McMansion, right? There isn't a design ideal or style that we have. And since most of the houses built in America are production houses, 95% of houses on the market are ugly. I just said that out loud, didn't I? And so bad design is the problem, or lack thereof. Because if you look at architects too, they're not being trained in classical or traditional design in college, in schools. There's only one major college that's still teaching traditional design, which is Notre Dame. So it's a real problem. And that, you asked what the worst trend is. Yes, that it's all these bad design trends coming together. So how about that, Brad? That's why you brought me, right?
There's a reason I've never shown you a picture of my home, but that's a different conversation. DJ Hype Train, you're up.
Thanks for being here, guys. We're all here because we like to make money. But the question I have, which everybody can reflect on if you'd like, is I'd like to know your why. In your heart and soul, why do you get up every day and do what you do, and how did it make you so successful and to inspire other men and women like us? You can start from either side.
I'll go first, just since I have the mic. Because I'm on a rant. That whole passion for craft in my podcast is because we are passionate. I was playing golf with a guy the other day, and I said that we were asking each other what our super strength is. Like, what is your super strength? And it's really passion, desire for building. I love what we do. I love building houses. I love crafting and building things. I think it's a generational, something that's been practiced for thousands of years, and we get to be a part of that. So that makes me excited, building beautiful things.
Me as well. I think for me, having something tangible and to show is something that's meaningful to me. It lights me up, being able to develop, being able to build a home or build a residence. It's something that I've always really gravitated towards. And having a tangible thing is something that I find a lot of joy in.
You might notice a theme here, building. I was the little kid who had a workbench. As a teenager in early 20s, I framed houses. My whole life, I've had a passion to build things, which just turned into a career. I got a degree in construction management. Construction has been my passion since I could walk.
Yeah, man, that's hard
Matthew,
to follow.
supply chains.
Supply
Loves
chains.
the way.
Spreadsheets. No, my passion started obviously with building, but started my first job working on a lumber yard and just loved it to death. And then got into the home building, and I think what gets me up and going every day is relationships with our suppliers, trying to solve problems together, thinking strategically on, okay, if you move this puzzle piece here, what happens? And then try to make sure it's a good win for both sides and not trying to get a winner and loser out of it. And so it's maybe a little bit of a cliche, but you know what? Sometimes it just makes you feel good when you can get success for both sides.
Yeah, it's interesting. As your career goes along, I think those passions change, they form. And, early on for me, I came from total different industry, got into it, and it was survival. It was passion. I enjoyed building, curious learner. I wanted to get good at it. As we move along, fast forward, I'm getting older. All of a sudden, I realize even a couple of my sons are in the business with me. And now I'm thinking, wow, this is really about passing that passion on to the next generation. It's training up. It's building a culture where we develop people. It's really fun seeing, other trend where not everybody's feeling like they got to go to college now. They realize, boy, they've got creativity, they've got skills, they've got intelligence, but they may not love, auditing or something of that sort. We're taking some young people that are really talented and continuing that craft. I mean, I've learned a lot from Brent over the years, from Bradley. How do you take that passion and how do you engage people and share it with the next generation? So anyway, that's really the fun passion for me now. It's really, really engaging me.
I think for me, there's hundreds of thousands of components that go into a home, and building a home, especially building a luxury home, has a bunch of challenges, and I get super excited about challenges. I like seeing something I've never seen before. When somebody comes to me and says, hey, I want a salt room. First time I was asked that a few years ago, and I'm like, what the heck's a salt room? So I had to do research, and then I got super excited to be able to build my first one, right? And there's been a lot of firsts in the business. And so our company's moving into the luxury side of it more and more every year. And I do it, and we're excited about it because I like everything to be different. And I like that opportunity to do something I've never done. And I like to be a little bit scared of it. There's something really fun for me to do that. So,
follow-up question. What was the word you said, and then what sort of room was it?
Salt room.
Salt.
Yeah. It's a room that is completely protected from the rest of the house. Usually has 2 doors. It really should have 2 doors. You go in there and there's a salt machine that literally blows sea salt, like Himalaya sea salt in there. And some of them just look like a bare nothing room, and you have a chair in there and you just sit there and you breathe it in, and it's supposed to be medicinal, breathing in that salt. Some of them are super fancy. We did one that was, the walls looked like salt and had recliner chairs and sound system and all this kind of cool stuff. But the people want to go in there and relax for 45 minutes a day or so and make them feel good. One guy, the first guy that I did it for, he said, my wife had chronic illness for 10, 15 years. We got the salt room and everything completely disappeared. So I don't have them.
What's the next big thing?
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
That's all done next.
Have you enjoyed navigating the supply chain for Himalayan sea salt?
Yeah, it's been fun.
It's been good. Okay, all right. Yeah, thank you. We got a question from the audience. Yes, Kyle, back here.
Salespeople like us, we have our regular responsibilities to serve you. What are some things that some of your key partners do that really set themselves apart from the rest of the group?
I say they come to the table with solutions. It's not, hey, you have this problem. It's, we found this problem. Here's 3 different ways to solve it. What's the next step? That's what I would say.
Yeah, this one might be obvious, but be on job sites, right? Whoever you're supplying to, be on their job, know their people on their job, know their product, know their customer. Be on the job and be knowledgeable. Don't just come into their office, sell them a product, and leave. Spend time on their job sites and truly get to know it.
Yeah, do your job. Like the Bill Belichick, do your job, show up to your job. And I think the sale is part of it, but the execution. So to Andrew's point, going to the field, understanding what's going on. And to Matthew's point, if there's a problem, have a solution. So I think it's, the full cycle, not just the sale, but the execution and getting everything finished. Everything that you said you were going to deliver, make sure you deliver it.
Yeah, I would just kind of comment. I don't think there's a successful, profitable contractor, GC, et cetera, who says they have enough time to be on the job where the work is actually happening. They're being called away. And if you can step in and say, I'm talking to people, I'm hearing conversations, I'm observing situations, different people, apart from your construction manager, are struggling with this. If you can be part of that conversation in a positive way and offer solutions, you are helping solve a problem. Ineffective communication in our industry, that's the whole reason we all have jobs. So if you can go there, and I think that so many people when I was purchasing, guys would come in and say, are you aware of this issue? I go, I've never heard of it. And they come and show me on their phone, 8 photos of 8 different houses that all had 4 sheets of drywall left in it on the same model, in the same community, and I didn't know about it, and the house is closing the next week. This is new information. I can now act on this, right? So being part of that, is that fair to say, gentlemen? Yeah. Okay. Questions here? Yeah, let's go. Mike?
This is kind of for the whole panel. So all this advice on how to help us be better at sales is great. But do you have any stories of spectacularly bad sales calls that you've had?
Yeah, I'll tell you, and I use this example with my 3 groups, is people who are not responsive, right? I call them, they don't call back. I email them, they don't respond. That's typically my worst experience. It's just a lack of responsiveness. You'll get salespeople who come in and they sell you on a great price and a great product and great service, and they get the sale and they move on, and you never hear from them again, and you can't get a hold of them when you need them. Those are probably my worst experiences. It's just they move on to the next sale, right? They've gotten our business and they've moved on, and now they call me back 3 weeks later. It is generally the worst experiences I have.
I think I will answer that a little differently. First off, when people come in and talk to me, I'm usually pretty open. Although most people don't talk to me, they'll talk to one of our purchasing people. But I like to communicate, and I think I make it an easy conversation. But I would say my worst experience was actually as a sales manager with one of my salespeople in selling a customer. And I remember it was so bad that, you know what the toe curl is? You're sitting there, I wanted to crawl under the desk or hide. I wanted to do anything to get away from that whole meeting. We walked out of there, and I honestly didn't want to, I didn't want to talk to that salesperson again. It was so bad. I mean, he went down in flames in 30 seconds. And it's still something obviously that sticks in my brain, and I still am mortified. I never went back to that customer. I was so embarrassed that I wouldn't even go back there because I thought he would think that I'm like that guy. So I would say that's my worst.
What did he say?
Oh, he said so many stupid things. First off, started talking about personal stuff that right out of the gate that he shouldn't have said. He started talking about a fight he had with his girlfriend and just all sorts of random things that had nothing to do with the meeting. And then he put down one of the guy's employees from when he saw him on the job site and said he smelled bad. And I mean, just everything that you could say don't do, he did. And did it within just a few minutes. I mean,
so efficient.
Yeah.
So efficient in his badness.
Yeah.
Now, Brent, you strike me as a person who doesn't suffer fools. What happens when a salesperson walks out and says, I've been doing this a long time? Might have been the worst sales meeting I've ever had. After he leaves with you, what happens in that meeting where you're like, get out, we're done. I gave you 20 minutes, I gave you 30 minutes, it's over in 5. What does that feel like? What does that sound like?
Well, I mean, it's a common thing that we've been talking about up here. Just know your shit. I mean, just someone asked, kind of how to succeed. We have grown past some subs. In other words, they came to us when we were maybe doing slate roofs, but we wanted to move on to Ludovici tile roofs. And they were like, yeah, we don't really do that. And I was like, okay, well, if you want my business, you got to figure that out. Okay. And, we just, they weren't interested in growing with us. We're just moving on. So yeah, I'm pretty blunt. And so if you're wasting my time, I'll tell you pretty quick, you're wasting my time. And get to the point, know your shit, and let's go.
I would say the spectacular flameouts from sales, those are ones where you're aware of those and you can learn from them. I would say the bigger risk for all of us, I would say you guys, all of us, is that they've made that decision, we ain't gonna work together. Except they're too nice, and several of these people I know, I've been in business meetings with them firsthand, and I've done it, and it normally sounds like, sorry, your price is just too high. And what they're really saying is, I don't know, you showed up late, you're kind of sloppy, you weren't responsive. Quite frankly, the meeting we had was kind of annoying. It was kind of halty. It wasn't easy. I like this guy better, but you just missed out. And you walk away and you're like, shoot, I just missed it. No, you didn't. You weren't within 100 yards of landing this business. Am I wrong? Right?
You're not wrong.
And we on paper, we put a range of aggressiveness to niceness of these 6 individuals. Dave, I don't know. Dave's super nice. Dave, even you do this, I'm sure, where you're like, this is not going to happen. But you don't say that because we want to be nice. We don't want to hurt people's feelings. Most of us, right?
Yeah, I don't know about the nice guy comment. I try to be nice. No, I mean, straightforward with people. One of those things came to mind, though, I think, of Adam's comment and talking about networking. I love the fact if you can keep the big picture in mind, way beyond just the product you're selling, but how does it fit into the overall workload that this builder's under? And knowing how can I really solve some problems and be on his do not worry list. I don't want to be on his problem list. He's got 100 people he's dealing with. If I can be one where he knows I've got it, I've got his best interests in mind, and he's not having to think about me, man, you've won. But also if you can bring solutions from other subs, whether it's a plumber or whether it's just general profitability or beauty of that project, and going to visit that project even after your product's already been installed, showing that you really care about that builder. And ultimately, he's trying to sell that house, right? He's trying to have a satisfied homeowner, and you want to be with him. You're a valued team member. Boy, if he feels that, it kind of overcomes some of the isolation that builders feel out in the market, where they kind of in this silo. They're not getting a whole lot of feedback from other competitors. And so you're kind of a lifeline to them. So there's a lot of opportunities there.
Cool. Kind of final thoughts. Really appreciate your time. Maybe just go around. We'll start with Adam, go to Brent, come back here to Bob, and go down. Maybe just some final thoughts, any takeaway that either you want to really reinforce as right after you guys, we just have, some wrap up things, and then everyone goes back to their life. And when they do, I know all you guys got emails and voicemails and sales that are waiting to happen, and life's going to take over. Is there any kind of last message you would say that either you want to reinforce or maybe you hadn't heard discussed that you think is really important? Adam?
Okay, so a couple things. I would say, first off, these could be very, very helpful if you leave these and actually apply what you learned, right? I would say you definitely want to, for the next 6 or 7 visits that you have with a customer and you're trying to sell them, I would go through this whole process again until it really sinks in, because the worst thing that'll happen is you go and maybe you apply 1 or 2 items, you forget the rest of it, and it was really basically a waste at that point. You really need to continually refresh your brain on it or it will disappear, promise. So take your books and all that and make sure you spend time studying it. I would say that kind of going back to what I said before about, it's not about you. If you could just, that one thing, really start to put yourself in the position of that person that you're trying to sell and understand where they're coming from. If you could do that by understanding their business and caring about their business. I mean, I was when I was a sales guy, I'm not a good salesperson, right? Like I couldn't go to a car dealership and be successful because I just don't like to sell like that. I'm not good at closing in that way, right? Where I was successful and ended up, being a top salesman in my company was because I cared. It just came down to me really liking my customers to the point to want to find out as much as I possibly could. And I was a valued resource. I had clients that didn't even talk to subs. I mean, they were big enough customers that they had people that did everything for them. And the owners would still call me and ask for advice on weird stuff just because they knew I was connected to a lot of different people. And that's the position you want to be in. You want to have them like you enough that they always answer your call and they're actually calling you for advice and all that. I also want to, again, reiterate that the networking component is absolutely vital. If you're not involved, I'd get involved in your local HBA, Home Builder Association, and get to know people through that. Those relationships feel a lot more harmless with the builders when you're at those events talking to them and all that. And it's a good way to get in with not only with them, but potentially get in with other, subs and vendors that could get you in the door with someone down the road. My very first customer was president of the Master Builder Association in Snohomish and King County. By getting that one guy, he got me 5 other builders because of his influence. So again, networking is really, really important.
What I would say is don't be order takers. I tell my project managers, we're not going to be the order taker builder. In other words, don't go pick your brick, go pick your windows, we'll install it. I want them to be knowledgeable. No, you don't want that window, you want this molding, you want that door. And how do you do that? You become an expert we've talked about, all of us are passionate about building. Dive into that and realize that we care a lot about building quality, building parts, building pieces, building better. And if you can be solution like we're talking about, I think that's what I would encourage.
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, it's so exciting to be a part of this profession, this industry, and just recognize as a sales man or woman, you're a professional, and it is an art and a craft that you can get better at. I mean, you've been given so many great tools through Bradley's workshop here at your own business already, and so you got to put in the work though. And, in preparing, I would encourage you over prepare or do whatever it takes for you to be able to shine and be yourself and be confident. People want to buy from people who they naturally enjoy being with and who exude confidence. The only way you can do that is you got to know your stuff. You've got to be the expert that they can rely on. And so, it takes work, but once you get to that point, then it looks easy. You make it look easy because you've done the work and you've acquired those skills. So thrilled that you guys are here. It's fun to see.
Really appreciate everybody being here and allowing us up here. I would say is you want to be the person that we reach out to, not even when in your market or region or even in your trade, but there's a very few people I would say that I have on my speed dial that says, hey, I have this problem in X market. Can you help me out? Or here's what they're saying. And I have enough trust in that person, that salesperson, to say, hey, give me some ideas. And if I can parlay that and use that for helping me out somewhere else, it only helps you guys out being that first call when need arises. So I'd say just keep the network going. Don't get discouraged. It's tough conversations a lot of times. Unfortunately, the world we live in, price is definitely always a key. Sometimes you won't be able to get there, and that's okay. And just having that open and honest conversation and look for that next angle. But you want to be that person's, whether it's the buyer, the builder, or whatever, you want to be their first call when they're running into problems.
So what I'd say you guys have heard before, but for the new account, figure out a way to make a meaningful relationship. The 3 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon saying, right? Figure out how you know that person and how you have a connection to them and make that connection and make it meaningful. For the existing account, my favorite suppliers are the ones that I don't hear from. Things just happen and they happen flawlessly. But when I need them, And this sounds selfish, but it's the reality. When I need them, they're there for me. I rarely hear from them, but when I call, they answer. So, difference between new account and existing account.
Learn from your mistakes, know your audience, and don't give up. It's a tough business. You'll get 1,000 no's, but keep working for that yes. I think through that experience, you'll be a better person, a better salesperson, and it'll lead to better opportunities. So stick with it.
For the OSR Academy, folks, what framework have we talked about that was mentioned a couple times? Cooper just mentioned it again about referrals. What's that framework we talk about? Yes, sir. Clay. All right. We talk about have a referral, do some LinkedIn, talk. Somebody knows somebody that knows you, that you can co-op some, connection, prove you've done some research, and then have an idea or insight. If you have a referral, you prove you've done some research, and you have an idea or insight, it's not going to say you are not going to fail, but you are in a position to really have a helpful conversation. It's fair to say? Cool. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Round of applause for you guys. You guys are free to go. All right then, friends, how did that go? Hopefully you enjoyed our panel discussion at a recent training event that we hosted, again featuring Mr. Matthew Schmidt of PulteGroup, Mr. Andrew Cooper of Toll Brothers, Mr. Adam Lingenfelter of Lingenfelter Custom Homes, Mr. Brent Hall, he's super famous, you know who he is, Mr. Bobby Krueger of the Krueger Group and Maverick Development, and Dave Reichert of Davis-Hawn, Lynn Floyd, and ACM. Once again, I really want to thank these gentlemen for making time. Their involvement, their contribution of their insights and their expertise and advice really made this event special. And that, my friend, is all we have for this week. As always, thank you for listening. We'll close out with our leadership mantra. You, my friend, are owed nothing. Deliver value first. Make it a great week.